The Rolex sports models. Nearly every Rolex watch that matters is called Oyster Perpetual, before anything else that characterizes it more specific, like Cosmograph or Sea Dweller. What is this Oyster Perpetual stuff all about? Was the founder a lover of oysters and ate them regularly every day? No, of course not. We should not make jokes about Rolex, as this Swiss stuff is all quite serious. Rolex invented a lot of things, and often they did not invent something alone, nor were they the first ones to introduce this invention to the market. But often they were the first ones to make an invention a mass phenomenon. The first ones who, with this invention, were broadly recognized by the market. That's why Rolex often is considered to be the first inventor of something. But this is basically just a short version of the truth, or, to think more critically, a marketing myth. In that way, Rolex has, for the last 80 years, been a bit like Apple in these days. Also will Apple in 100 years from now be remembered to have made the first smartphone, the iPhone, the first tablet computer, the iPad, and even the first personal computer, the Macintosh. And in the same way, all of that is not true at all. There were others before, but nobody will remember them, as the hype began with Apple, because with the Apple products, these things became really usable by real-world people and thus were sold in really large numbers. And with Rolex and all the innovation they did, it is quite similar. Rolex often were not the first ones to do something literally, but they did it so well that they are remembered for it to this very day. And others are forgotten. So what now is the oyster? It's a waterproof case. Sealed like an oyster is the picture that is painted by the marketing guys. Every Rolex watch, other than the Cellini line, that is mostly recognized for being unimportant, every Rolex tool watch is an oyster watch, and that means it has basically the same waterproof case with the same patented features, especially the waterproof crown, which is the natural door for water to enter the closed sealed case. In the same way as stated above, Rolex also invented the automatic movement. That means a movement that winds itself, harvesting energy from the motions of your arm while you wear the watch. This, by the way, is one of the first energy harvesting technologies known to mankind, and Rolex calls this perpetual because the watch that way never has to be wound manually. It basically can run forever, as long as you wear it and you're not dead. And this also adds its share to the waterproof case, because you almost never have to unscrew the crown and wind the watch. It is always tightly sealed. So instead of Oyster Perpetual, Rolex could also inscribe waterproof automatic. But as every marketing-aware company, they don't want to. The Adventurers. The Explorer 1 and 2 are the basic robust sports watches for an active lifestyle. The Explorer 1 as a classic three-hand watch, very reduced, elegant and sporty at the same time. Whereas the Explorer 2 offers the date and GMT complication with a second time zone. Both are classics, with a design that has its roots in the 1950s Explorer and in the 1985 update of the original Explorer 2 that started in 1970 with the reference 1655 orange hand. From 1985 on, the Explorer 2 is available in two rather different looking versions, with a white dial and with a classic black dial. The Explorer 1 has exactly one incarnation and is not available with any variation. No other dials, no other bezel, no other case material. An Explorer is an Explorer is an Explorer. There is beauty in this simplicity. The Explorer is nearly a dress watch, especially the reference 114270 with 36mm is so reduced and decent that you can perfectly pull it off with a suit. It is without question one of the most versatile Rolex models ever. With a suit or on top of a mountain, the Explorer is always a perfect fit. The Date Masters. Nobody knows exactly how many versions of the Datejust exist. Well, no, that's not true. Somebody probably should know, but I don't. But that doesn't matter, as long as I can point out to find some models you will find attractive, and from there you can find your own way through the Datejust jungle. To be honest, there are a lot of versions of the Datejust around that really don't fit my taste at all. I would go so far that I cannot imagine someone whose taste should they fit. However, the Datejust is by far the most successful Rolex model, and perhaps I cannot understand all color tastes of people all around the globe. But there are also very beautiful ones. The Waterproof 4. The Submariner is considered the most important watch of all times. The most important watch of all times. In nearly every list of top collectors' watches, the Sub is number one. The first of the Rolex divers lineup was the Submariner. The first Submariner, reference 6200, was presented in 1953. And the first Sub with a date, reference 1680, was introduced in 1966. Many still consider the Submariner version without the date complication to be the original and classic one, and prefer it over the date version because its beautiful geometry without the date window and especially the Cyclops lens looks somehow more balanced. The Submariner was so successful that professional divers demanded for an improved version. The result was the Sea Dweller, of which the first one was called Submariner Sea Dweller. So the Sub was also the ancestor of the Sea Dweller, and the Sea Dweller was optimized for professional diving that would go deeper than 300 meters in the ocean. The Sea Dweller today can withstand water pressure of up to 1,200 meters depth. That's why it is called the Sea Dweller 4000. 4,000 feet equals 1,200 meters. In 2008, finally Rolex discontinued the Sea Dweller 16660 and introduced the hulking Sea Dweller Deep Sea 116660 with a pressure resistance of up to 3,900 meters of water depth. This watch is not only a record holder when it comes to diving deep, but also in geometry, as it was the first Rolex diving watch that had a 44mm case instead of the standard 40mm of all its ancestors. It also is nearly 2 centimeters thick, what makes it really special to wear. Instead of the 40mm case that fits nearly every wrist, from small to large, the Deep Sea needs a strong arm to fit properly. Not everyone likes the new Sea Dweller since 2008, and so Rolex finally brought back the Sea Dweller 4000 116600 with a, again, 40mm case and normal dimensions. All Sea Dweller versions are characterized by the date complication without the Cyclops lens. Talking about cases, the Sea Dweller is probably the only modern Rolex with a super case and maxi dial, we talk about this later on, that people find appropriate. It does not look disproportionate or too heavy, like the new GMTs, Submariners, the Explorer 2, and so on. The Sea Dweller 4000 fits perfect. So the Sea Dweller 4000 reference number 116600 is a beauty and probably the most modern Rolex watch today. GMT soft drinks. First off, the GMT Master 2 reference 16710 has a classic lineup. It is called the Pepsi, the Coke and the Espresso. In order to understand the official color codes that are, in the case of the GMT, added to the reference number, please keep in mind that Rolex is a Geneva-based company and people are speaking French there. So abbreviations for the colors are in French. NR stands for noir, that is black, and BL for bleu, which is blue, and RO for rouge, which is red. So the Pepsi is a BLRO, the Batman is a BLNR. Also, although it looks a little bit like the Submariner date, you can easily differentiate the all black in black GMT by the inscription on the bezel. Like every GMT, it has a 24-hour scale on the bezel, while the Submariner, which looks a little bit like it, has a 0 to 60 minute scale for exactly timing the short time periods up to 60 minutes in diving. But without a doubt, the Pepsi version with the blue and red bezel is the all-classic form of all the GMT color combinations. The initial idea was that the blue part of the dial shows the 12 hours of night, while the red part shows the corresponding 12 hours of daylight. With that in mind, it is easy to see why many find the espresso color variation black and black not all too convincing. Here, the differentiation between black for night and black for day is not so perfect at all. In that sense, it is a bit like a white eagle on a white flag. If you can read, this is not all too important, of course. And the black bezel has a style magic of its own. The modern GMT Master 2 lineup is different. It consists of the Pepsi, the blue and red version, the Batman, the black and blue version, which is new, and the black version still. With the modern ones, there is a discontinuity in the lineup. And that is because the classical Pepsi is now only available in white gold. At least when this book is written. Of course, the Rolex community is eagerly waiting for a new Pepsi for less than 10,000 bucks. But that means that there is not one identical code reference for these three modern GMT models anymore, as for the old ones, the 16710, as the white gold version has another color code for the material. So everything is a little bit out of order these days. The Speed Freak. The Daytona has a story of its own. It began with a model that wasn't very popular in its first 20 years of existence, from 1963 to 1983. Then, in 1989, a redesign of the Daytona to its modern day looks changed everything. A star was born. And the star wasn't available. As Rolex did not sell very many Daytonas before 1989, and as they had no chronograph movement of their own, they went to Zenith and ordered their Il Primero movement to put in their new Daytona. So the magic kicked in second. Zenith, being a small company, could not ship very many movements each year, and so the Daytona could only be produced in very low quantities. On the other side of the equation, customers stood in line to get one. So the legend for the waiting list for the Daytona was born. And the calculation for a 10-year waiting time goes as follows. Every shop would get one Daytona with a black dial and one with a white dial each year. So with 20 people on the waiting list, the 24th one had to wait 10 years to get his Daytona. And this, of course, is bogus. The truth is much simpler than that. If you want a Daytona, you can get one. On the internet, of course. But the legend is still alive, and although Rolex makes their own superb chronograph movements for the Daytona in any quantity they like since 2001, you still get the story of the 10-year waiting list for the Daytona wherever you go. In 2016, the Daytona got a major update since the 1989 design. The steel bezel it had since the famous rework in 1989 was replaced by a new scratch-resistant black ceramic bezel. And so the look of the Daytona has changed back closer to the now famous and sought for vintage Paul Newman Daytonas from the 1960s. The black or white question. Black or white? That's the question. At least with the Explorer 2 and the Daytona. And a hard question it is, because both versions are stunners in their own right. White dials always have a little feminine touch to them. They are more elegant, tend to beauty, and are soft in their appearance, while the black dial is more masculine, tougher, less on the side of beauty, but radiates roughness and toolishness. So you probably need both. And that is not too far from the truth, as the model with a white dial and black dial are often so different in their look and appeal that you may not be able to decide which one to take and easily end up with both. In the end, the color of the dial often needs to fit the color of your clothes. So what you buy depends on what you usually wear. Combined with black or dark formal clothing, the black dial watches often look better, where in the combination with light colors and in the summertime, or the white dial in the snow, just represents and mirrors the friendliness and vitality of summer weather or of the icy, elegant cold of winter. Especially the Explorer 2 with the white dial is a real snow watch. It just somehow belongs there, seems to be made for ice and snow. A pair of Explorers. The two Explorer models seem to be made for rather different environments. They are rather unequal twins. Where the black dial still resembles the original Explorer 2 1655 from 1970, which was made for cave explorers who stay underground for days, being the reason it has a GMT complication and shows 24-hour time, the black one still has that dark underground aura to it. And the white one with the white dial seems to be made more for snow-clad mountain peaks, wide windy glaciers and blue skies. You imagine people with thick beards clad in colorful snow clothing with snow glasses to protect their eyes from the sun and the icy winds. And on the wrist they have, of course, the Rolex Explorer 2 with a white dial. At least in the sales material of Rolex, this is suggested. The distinction in the case of the Daytona indeed is not so clear at all. A pair of razors. Also, the Daytonas are quite different. While the white dial version is on the first glance a real beauty, the black dial version is more decent and has just more bling to it. On the wrist, it just glitters and glows like a crown jewel. A white dial chronograph is rather uncommon. The other ultra-classic chronograph, the Omega Speedmaster, is only available with a black dial. Black as space, which it is accredited for. Usually black dials have far better readability, and that is for a tool watch one of the most important features. What do you need a watch for you cannot read properly? And this is where the white Daytona uncovers its eccentric nature. Here it becomes clear that the white dial Daytona is more jewelry, a homage to the spirit of the Daytona, an extravagancy, more a fashion thing than a tool watch. And that is what makes it a beauty, but not so seriously a tool watch at all. What the black dial version still is. In my book, I believe that in the long run a watch is a package of properties that must make sense. A watch that does something wrong will not stand the test of time. And that is keep its value. But the Daytona may be the exception to the rule, as it always is.